Welcome to Toronto, the largest city in Canada. It's not the capital city, that would be Ottawa, but Toronto, and this is how it should be pronounced. The second T apparently is silent. You know how everyone thinks of Canadians as the politest people on the earth? Well, some call Torontonians, New Yorkers of Canada. Anyhow, Toronto is the most populous city in Canada, with almost 6.4 million inhabitants. But Toronto is also super cultural, 51% European, 34% Asian, 9% African, 3% Latin American, 2% Arabian, and only 1% Indigenous backgrounds. Toronto was established almost 230 years ago. There's a lot of history, but I don't want to get deep into it since I'm right here now in today's Toronto and I want to see what's it like. Okay, I'm here for the first time ever and of course wanted to see everything possible. For instance, this is the famous CN Tower. The CN Tower is probably the most iconic skyscraper in the Toronto skyline. Standing at a little over 550 meters tall, the tower is the tallest building in North America. Interesting fact, 1,500 workers participated in the construction of Toronto CN Tower, which took 40 months.
Although some argue it's not worth a visit, I found it charming. I mean, it would have been a shame to be in here, and later when someone asked for CN Tower to say I passed on it, you know? Overall, the city is also popular and well known for its professional sports. You probably heard of how much Canadians love hockey. Well, so did I.
The Hockey Hall of Fame is where you can find the largest collection of hockey stuff in the world, including the famous Stanley Cup. They have things from the very start of hockey to modern jerseys and gear. There are also cool interactive displays that are really fun to check out. It's a great place for big hockey fans or people who don't know much about the sport.
Shame it is September and game season hasn't started yet, but on the other hand, at least it's warm and the weather is actually not bad.
Funny thing, I actually had this picture in my mind that it's pretty cold in Canada all year round. Well, I'm happy I'm wrong. This country is so huge, it actually has all 4 seasons. Many parts of the country have scorching hot summers. For real, in July and August, a big chunk of central and southern Canada sees temperatures over 30 degrees. However, Canada has 7 different climate zones, so the temperatures and weather can be all over the map. Check this out before you travel here.
Whenever I'm a new place, there's nothing better than just wander around for half a day. This way, I can capture this vibe, you know, and also get across many key points, such as Scooterham Building, also known as the Flatiron Building. The historic 19th century red brick building gives so much character to Toronto's modern skyline.
If you are a museum type of tourist, I strongly recommend visiting Royal Ontario Museum and the Art Gallery of Ontario. There are plenty of museums here in Toronto, but these two appear to be the most popular, as well as amazing because they have in total over 100,000 artwork from the past century to today.
Of course, I couldn't miss the referred to as the Times Square of Toronto. Yonge Dundas Square is a hub of shops and entertainment, so I walked around it for a little while and headed to Nathan Phillips Square.
It is the colorful and picturesque heart of the city. Take a picture with the Toronto sign, with the Toronto City Hall set as the backdrop. The fountain that sits in front of the sign is converted into an ice rink during the winter season, so make sure to strap on some skates while you're here.
You know, some argue that this spot is overrated, along with CN Tower. And I mean, I get it, here are a lot of people, so it might be a little frustrating. So to get away for a little bit, good thing would be Toronto Islands. This city is so huge, it even has its own islands.
For the best views of the Toronto skyline, make sure to visit Toronto Islands Park. This is a hot spot in Toronto during the summer month, where you can spend time on the beach, on the water, or out for a picnic. The islands are roughly 3 miles from end to end and connected through a series of pathways and bridges.
To see all these places, which are practically top 5 of typical bucket lists in Toronto, I simply walked. But there is so much else to see, and here is when I learned that the strongest pro of this city is public transportation. I mean, seriously, it's mostly all clean and reliable, and it's better to get one day TTC card worth 13 Canadian dollars rather than use your car or rent one, because traffic here is a disaster. You know that Toronto is the city we all see most of the time filmed as New York? Because it is cheaper and etc. But I am sure all scenes with traffic are no different, so filmmakers don't need to spend a penny on setting up scenes. So here is actually how I got to Casa Loma, a big castle, one of the very few in North America.
This castle was built in the early 1900s for the Sir Henry Pellet as a fancy mansion right in the middle of Midtown Toronto. And guess what? Now it's a cool place for everyone to learn about history.
It made up quite an interesting touristic place to spend at least half a day. It had got it all, numerous rooms, hidden tunnels, and wax figures.
All in all, While Canada has marked 155 years as a nation, the history of life in the region goes back much further. For a staggering 11,000 years, people have inhabited the land and now stand at. Various tribes like Chippewa, Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Wendat, and Mississaugas of the Credit had established settlements here. To honor this journey, there are numerous tours and spots to explore that guide you through Toronto's timeline. And Casa Loma adds this touch to the modern skyline I was literally just looking at from the Toronto Islands. Interesting fact, many people do not know that here in Canada they have two official languages, English and French. But if you assume that everyone speaks both, that is not the case. French is mostly used in Quebec, and the most of the country speak English. Anyhow, here in Toronto, Canada, it is important to follow a couple of rules so your journey, or in this case, my trip, wasn't ruined. Stay polite, be friendly, don't be loud, watch your steps since there are so many people, and tip. Don't forget to tip, and I'm dead serious. Tipping is part of Canadian culture, and it's customary to tip around 15 to 20% in restaurants. Sometimes the bill might automatically include a service charge. If not, you can calculate the tip amount by multiplying 50 to 20% with the bill, excluding tax. Then you add the tax back to get the final total. It's also considered polite to tip for other services like haircuts, taxes, and bars. The amount can vary, but a typical amount might be around 10%, and it's ultimately up to you. Oh yeah, about the tax. I heard that something that often confuses people initially is that the prices displayed in shops and restaurants don't include tax. Instead, the tax is added when you pay your bill. This can make it a bit tricky to know the exact total until you're at the cash counter, but don't expect your trip to be cheap. At the end of the day, we're in the largest city in Canada, right? So the accommodation might easily cost you around $300 a night if we are talking about 3 to 4 star hotels, and a dinner at a good restaurant without a glass of wine should be something like $40 per person. Of course, there are plenty of options, but I'm saying it all so that you are aware, because I was not, really.
Food is super diverse. As I said, here are a lot of cultures in Toronto. And don't think that you have to eat only Canadian cuisine. Explore more and you'll be surprised. Funny thing, I actually couldn't even name one dish that I knew was Canadian cuisine before I traveled here, and I googled it.
St. Lawrence Market stands out as a must-visit spot for food enthusiasts. This indoor marketplace is a hub for diverse stalls, each brimming with vendors showcasing locally sourced products. Prime cuts of meat, mouth-watering seafood, an area of fruits, cheese that will make you swoon, and a selection of fine wines. No matter what you're hungry for, St. Lawrence Market is the place to satisfy those cravings.
So you remember I said Toronto is the largest city in Canada? Well, there's more absolutely mind-blowing places out of the city. Super close and under 2 hours drive, you can see Niagara Falls.
There are 3 ways to get here: by car, bus, or train. The cost varies, but the trip would be about 2 hours one way. So please make sure you're comfortable and stacked with snacks and water.
Couple of facts, the falls are pretty young. Geologically speaking, only 12,000 years. Niagara Falls' vertical height is over 176 feet in some sections, and it's not the tallest in Canada. That would be Niagara Falls of 1,445 feet. Yet it is the greatest in volume. More than 700,000 gallons of water per second pour over Niagara Falls, rushing over at about 25 miles per hour. This volume gave some people a drive to over it. The first person to go over the Niagara Falls in a barrel was 63-year-old school teacher Annie Edson Taylor. She suffered only a concussion and a minor cut on her head. At least a dozen people have survived the plunge. Numerous others have lost their lives.
Toronto is the 6th safest city in the world in 2023, and it's one of the happiest cities in the world. It was 7th in friendly locals, which is pretty important to any traveler. To be honest, I have my own list of cities and countries I've been so far that impressed me the most. Toronto is now on the 3rd place among more than 50 cities I've been so far. Enjoy your trip to Toronto. See you soon.